What's up? This video, I'm going to explore my recent trip to Europe, and I'm going to be talking about my number one tip and my number one place to stay in all of Europe. We always go to Mexico, and this year in 2023, we decided to spend 20 days going from Kansas City, Missouri to London, UK, then from London to Italy, and then from Italy to Greece. And I'm going to talk about all the places that we stayed, our favorite place that we stayed, and some of the takeaways. So first of all, let's talk about how much was the travel. If you've been watching me for a long time, you know we preach in real estate investing, you don't need to pay for things. So I'm going to break down what I paid for or what the cost is, but I can tell you that for most of this trip, the credit card points allowed us to travel for free. So first of all, the airline tickets were $5,000. Out of the $5,000, that's for round trip tickets on American Airlines. And so we paid $5,000 for 4 seats, coach to Chicago, Chicago to London Heathrow, and Athens back to JFK. So first of all, if you're entering back into the US, you need to make sure that you leave at a time that arrives prior to like 7 p.m. into the East Coast if you're going to the West Coast. Because if you're flying, what we find out is we had to spend the night in New York because there was no flights after 8 o'clock at JFK. Nothing going out. Lots coming in from international, but nothing going out. So that's tip number one that I learned. When we got to London, the hotel rooms in London are very, very small. There is no space. So we picked a really cool location. It was the London Bridge Renaissance Marriott location. That's where we stayed. Which is right by. It's a quick walk to the London Bridge. It's a quick walk to really anything in town. In fact, we walked back from the theater district, which was like 2.5 miles. So we walked a lot in London. We had a great time there. Don't stay in hotels when you're traveling abroad with your family. Always, always, always pick Airbnbs. We were in great locations in all of the other properties and all of the other locations that we stayed, but we had so much more space. In London, the hotel was in a fantastic location, but we could not get comfortable in the hotel room. It was so small, I bet you it was 300 square foot. And so we just really didn't have a lot of space. It wasn't comfortable. Boo-hoo-hoo on me. It was free, but it was just not comfortable and I wouldn't do it again. The other thing I wanted to tell you about London, take a cab when you're in London. Just don't take an Uber, take a cab. We took an Uber to the airport from my house, which was like $12 or something like that. We took an Uber from London Heathrow to our hotel. It took us an hour and 45 minutes. When we were leaving London, we took a cab back, which we should have taken a cab before. We took that cab, we went to Heathrow on the way back, same price, got there in 45 minutes, and thank God we did, because what do you know? I picked the wrong freaking airport, and we were actually flying out of London Gatwick, so we had to take a $100 cab ride to Heathrow just to take another $140 cab ride to London Gatwick once we got to the airport and realized we were in the wrong airport. So some highlights about London. If you have not been to London, first of all, like I said, stay in an Airbnb when you're traveling abroad with your family. Stayed in London 4 days. We saw all the important sites. We saw Back to the Future, one of the plays. We went to Big Ben. We went to the Thames River. All of that stuff crosses the Thames River. We went to all of the sites. We did the hop on, hop off bus tour. I would actually encourage you to do that in London. I think they have a great system there for seeing all of the sites. And so we felt like that was a great bang for your buck. The kids loved it. I loved it. You got to stay on there. If you felt like this area is too busy, we'll get back on there. You're just on this 2-hour bus that's going to every single tourist stop in London. After London, we headed to Florence, Italy. So we went on Vueling Airlines, and I use an app called Skyscanner. So if you're looking for a great app that finds you flights day of, all of that stuff, international, national, I would check out Skyscanner. It probably gets the least press. That's the one I use. So what I would do a couple days before or the day of is I'd be looking for flights. I didn't pre-book anything out. I don't think it did us any good. I didn't see the flights change too much internationally, and I noticed that last time. So we took Vueling Airlines, which is a delightful surprise. They were amazing, and we took them to Florence, which was our second stop. And in Florence, we saw everything. We saw the Michelangelo, we saw the Duomo, we saw everything. It's such a pretty city, and there's so much great food to eat. In Italy, we took a cab from the airport. The airline tickets there were about $800 to get us from London to an hour and a half later. We're in Florence, Italy is awesome. There's amazing stuff to do. There's a river that divides everybody, and on one side of the bridge you've got, the main shopping area, the downtown, and on the other side you got another part of town. And so what we did there in Florence is we ate, we saw things, we toured museums, and we had the perfect amount of time there. It's one of the places that we wish we stayed a lot longer. My top thing to do in Florence would be to go and hike up to the top of the Duomo. It was like 700 steps all the way to the top. These guys built this thing over 150 something years, and it's an amazing sculpture, all sculpted out of marble. The guys who built it, they built it with wine in their blood all day long, and it's perfect. It was brick by brick. It's an amazing architectural accomplishment. It's amazing to sit out there and watch something that's been around for almost 1,000 years and was built. It took about 150 years to build. So it's just a really cool thing to see that type of history. Top things to do in Florence, I would say eating and looking at just the beautiful everything. The weather is great there. It's temperate. There's plenty of things to do. One of the things that I enjoyed doing that was not on any of the hot lists was taking an electric bike ride, like all the way down the trails along the water, because there was so much stuff that you just would not see. Electric bikes are all over Europe, and they're super cool. There's like so many top restaurants. Like every place that we picked was good. We just went to Yelp, or we stopped into a place that looked good and we checked it out, and we had a lot of great meals. We ate gelato like it was going out of style. After Florence, Italy, my wife didn't know why I wanted to do this, but it ended up being one of the coolest places that we went. We took a flight to Sicily, and specifically Catania is the airport. And the funny thing about Sicily is, and this is a tip for you, if you're going to Sicily, you might want to find some place that flies into Palermo. Where we stayed, which is in Syracuse or Ortigia. One's an island and the other thing's connected to the island. Where we stayed, it was an hour to the airport that way, and then it was like 2 hours to the airport the other way. So there just wasn't a good way to get there, but the cab was like $100 to the airport both ways. When we got into Sicily, it was so late. We had an hour drive, and it was just going off. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we got to our hotel room, looked around us and said, this place is going off. Let's go and hang out with our kids who are 9 years old. And we went out, and we were out till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were eating food, and it was still going on. It was just a really cool, smaller version of Florence with a lot different palettes for your food and things to take. One of the things that we did there, we were looking for like a hop-on, hop-off tour in Florence. We didn't find one that we liked, so we were looking for the same thing, but the streets are so small in Italy, so we ended up actually getting one of these tours where the guy hooked up his Google Voice translator to his speaker and did the whole tour by translating back and forth to us. So he'd say, hey, this is this thing right here. I don't know how to say that in English, so I'm going to say it to my phone. The phone would then translate into English and play through his speakers. So I thought that was great. I watched a lot of these guys around here, and he was the only guy hustling. So we took that. It was like 40 euros. It was awesome, and we went and saw all the cool things there. We saw a castle. We ended up taking a boat ride there. That was one of the top things that we did, and I'll actually do a video about the whole boat ride. That was a really cool experience. Definitely, if you're going to Italy, get to Sicily, go stay in Ortigia. We stayed in an Airbnb right by the Duomo down there, and it was amazing. It was on the water with a view of the water, and it was only $300 and something change a night, right? $300 to $400 a night, and it was huge. We had more than enough space to be comfortable. Where we headed to next, we're headed to Santorini, Greece. And listen, this is the place that we've been talking about. This was supposed to be the spot, right? I guess the Kardashians made it famous, so my wife was all about it. We ended up staying in this Airbnb with a pool that was a little bit off the beaten path, just a little bit. Let me tell you about the things that I do like about Santorini. First of all, I like Greek food. You have a beautiful water all around Santorini, lots of things to do on the boat, but there ain't nothing to do in that city in general. It's a cruise dumping ground, so literally there's cruises out there all day in the water. It's an island, so it's rocky, and so they have basically taxis bringing in cruise passenger after cruise passenger after cruise passenger after cruise passenger, but there's nothing to do there. It's a 1-day trip that we had for 4 days. And so you can imagine that there's just not much stuff to do, and so you just kind of do the same thing over and over again. Santorini, not a place that I would go back to. I've been there once, never go there again. Top thing to do there, we ended up getting a boat tour, which was $97 per person. We were out there all day long. They fed us. We stopped and went swimming at 3 different places, and we had an amazing time. And I would highly recommend that if you go to Santorini, do like an island tour and hit a bunch of different islands. Don't get stuck on one. Or if you're going to Santorini, go on a yacht. Do something cool like that, but don't get stuck there. So the next place that we went was Athens, Greece. I think we flew Aegean Airlines from Sicily to Santorini. We flew Aegean Airlines, the best airline. It was from Athens. It was literally a 45-minute flight, 30-minute flight to Athens. They gave us a sandwich, a bottle of water. I mean, they were all over it. They didn't charge us for our bags. It was a great airline. It was absolutely awesome. And then we ended up taking Ryanair to Athens, and that is the worst freaking airline in the world. In fact, I disputed one of my things. If you do not check in online with Ryanair, they charge you $60 a person for checking you in online at the airport. Just a way to grab a fee from you, and it just is obnoxious. The lady would literally not let me do anything until I paid her $248. She just kept saying, I'm sorry. So we went to Athens, and you have to take a connection, so you can't fly directly. So you're taking like a flight that should be 45 minutes, and it's ended up taking you, a whole day to get there. So it was like a half a day to get there. One of the things that I'll tell you that you need to have is make sure that you have a priority pass. If you're traveling international, it allows you to stay in all these awesome airport lounges. So if you're spending a little bit of time in an airport that you don't want to be a part of, especially some of these international airports are super small, but they have amazing lounges. And if you have a priority pass, you can stay. I thought I had one. I had never used it. And so we went there. I was able to find my number through my emails. I was able to get us into the priority pass, and we had an amazing time in these airline lounges, and that was an amazing tip and trick that I would share with you. So if you don't have that, it comes free with Amex, and it's a great tool that I would highly recommend that you use. So after Santorini, we went to Athens. In Athens, we picked a great location. We were right down from the Acropolis. We could see it out of our condo room. We were staying in an amazing condo right in the middle of everything, but we were just tired. One of the things that I'll tell you about Greece in general is there's a lot of beautiful water around there. So you need to, if I was to go back there again, I'd stay close to the beach and not close to downtown because we were right by the water. Both places, this one would allow us to stay on the beach. I would definitely make sure that you stay, if you go to Athens, that you stay on the beach. There's a lot of restaurants, a lot of shopping, a lot of food, and there's lots of beaches. If we had a better game plan, we probably would have stayed at the beaches a little bit more instead of just kind of hanging around our general area. This is kind of where we gathered some steam to get back to the US. At that point in time, I was like, can we get on an earlier flight and get out a day early? That's one of the final tips that I'm going to give you is book a first class ticket if you're able to do that. If you enjoyed that video, make sure you give us a like, make sure you give us a thumbs up, make sure you hit your notification buttons. What else would you like to learn about Europe? My biggest tip is do not stay in a hotel, do not take an Uber, and stay in Airbnbs close to good locations with superhosts. We enjoyed our trip to Europe. We have a lot more going on. Where should we go to next in Europe? Where would you go next in Europe? Let me know. Talk to you on the next one. Peace.